This is the Off the Break Podcast, your podcast dedicated to current movie theater news, operations, and insights from the people that book the movies. Now, here are your hosts, Cody, Kyle, and Ken.
All right, and we're here with a special edition of Off the Break Podcast with our first in-studio guest.
Our first in-studio guest interview.
Guest interview.
I'm honored.
With the magnificent Joe Spoons Borden.
That is my alias, I guess, on IMDb.
I was half tempted to put something else in there because Spoons was special.
Spoons.
I assume it was an Alabama thing?
So here's the deal. I worked on a movie called, what was it? Quiet Warrior? Peaceful Warrior? Peaceful Warrior. And I worked in the production office there, but the line producer's name was Joe Janier. So we already had a Joe.
Oh, you couldn't possibly have two Joes.
No, and so they said,
literally the most common name.
They were hiring me, and they go, we got to give you a nickname, and they started coming up with these horrible nicknames. They were like, oh, you're from Alabama, we'll call you Hayseed. And I'm like, no, actually, guys, I had a nickname in college. They called me Spoons. Why don't we just run with that? And they go, oh, Spoons, I love that. Okay, you're Spoons. And so I was Spoons for that entire production. By the way, nobody ever called me Spoons prior to that. I just made it up on the spot because I didn't want to be Hayseed. But the best part was I was the guy who brought the checks to set. So I was a hero when they saw me show up on set. And so everybody, when I showed up, they would go, Spoons. So I continue to allow IMDb to call me Spoons.
I was not going to point it out, but I'm like, I got to say something about this.
I know you were sitting on that. I could tell you had something because he was
credited.
like giddy with
he's
saying that.
He's credited. His son has a credit for being on an episode of Tosh.0.
Yeah.
Multiples. Yeah. It was a family affair.
He's got it on his own IMDb page.
Nice.
And I don't want to feel left out. So Cody, Ken, Kyle, you guys can call me Co-Corden if you would like to for this podcast. Everybody's got to be a cuss sound, so please feel free.
You could be Joe B. I don't know why they didn't go elementary school. Joe G and Joe B.
It's a great question. I think it's because they just called him Joe, right?
Oh.
And so he owned Joe.
That's the story of how I became Ken. I was Kenny growing up, and my first real adult job, there was an adult Kenny. And they're like, what can we call you? And I'm like, not Kenneth. So we'll go with Ken. And It's stuck, but it's not Spoons. It's not.
Are you
that.
happy that you're Ken and not Kenny now?
Way better.
Okay.
Way better.
It needed to happen at some point.
Yeah, it was one of those things, you grow into it. Eventually I'll be old and I'll be Kenneth. I'm guessing.
Think so?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
When we go back to the Midwest, though, I get a few Kennys from his family, and I just giggle. I think it's so funny.
And
Little Kenny.
it hurts. It's like all that childhood trauma just comes flooding back.
But nobody ever called you Kenneth?
No.
Okay.
No, my government name.
I was Joseph to my grandmother. My mom tried to call me Joseph. And for a long time, everybody did. But then the first day of second grade when they were taking roll, I think I just decided it was going to be Joe from now on, and it stuck.
I'm Joe now. And then we have Cody. There's no shortening that.
There's no fun nicknames
You've
for
always
me.
been Cody.
I've always been
You will
Cody.
always be Cody. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, nothing fun there.
Well, Joe's always been involved in film and TV production and writing and all sorts of exciting things.
It's true. Yep.
So he has a mountain of TV credits, movie production credits, check deliver credits.
Yeah.
And now he's got two movies that we're going to talk about today that were produced and filmed in the great state of Montana.
That's what I like to hear. That's right.
So we were wondering what brought you from LA to Montana.
My wife, it's a very simple answer. She is an MSU grad. So in the mid-90s, she spent 10 years in Bozeman, working in Big Sky, going to school at MSU. She was in theater. Her name is Michelle Veal. Now it's Michelle Veal Borden.
We can get into her credits later, too.
She's very funny. She is my podcast co-host. And she started dragging me to Montana in 2013. She just wouldn't shut up about how great it was for the longest time. She hated living in LA, which I did for 18 years. But when she first started bringing me to Montana, I got it immediately. We went to Whitefish, Glacier, that avalanche hike with 5 waterfalls emptying
all the
into an
pretty
alpine
places.
lake. I was awestruck. I was like, all right, fine. This
She knew
place
what
is
she was
great.
doing. Yeah.
And she and I are both from Alabama, so we always kind of hated it in the big city of Los Angeles, and Montana
Right.
feels like a much more natural fit.
Yeah.
And I do love living here.
And we're getting a bigger, film production.
Let's
here.
hope. Yeah. I mean, I'm working with the Montana Media Coalition to make sure that we extend those film tax incentive credits to anyone listening. If you would like to be a member, it's very easy to join us. It doesn't cost very much, and it's going to be existential to our industry moving forward.
Well,
Right.
that was the last topic, but why don't we get into that first? How do tax credits work? How is Georgia accredited on every single film that's opened in the last
With
30
a peach.
years?
Does Montana need to get something cool like a mountain
A
silhouette?
cow skull,
We could
Just
stamp movies.
But what were the
with?
treasure state? So you could have a treasure chest or something like that.
like
But,
everything else out here. Just put the Y from the Yellowstone on it and ask for permission later.
I mean, pretty much. I think the answer is that Georgia is just willing to spend that money. They know that they are going to see a return, as has Montana. On every dollar that we've spent, we've gotten $1.84 back from that. And so it seems to reason that we should extend the amount that we're spending to incentivize filmmaking in the state of Montana. But we're also apprehensive about doing it. We don't like to spend money as a state unless we sort of have a guaranteed return. But in this situation, there
do.
very much is.
Yeah. What is the allure about Montana, though, too? Because I do feel like we wouldn't be having this conversation if there wasn't production that wants to film in the state.
We were trying to sort that out, and like Washington and Oregon, people know what those are. They're Seattle and Bigfoot country.
Yeah.
California is California. And then you get into the middle, it's like Nevada has Las Vegas, Idaho's creepy. There's nothing in Montana. The Mormons own Utah. North and South Dakota are not special for any reason.
Yeah.
Other than like Division III college football a couple of times every decade.
You know,
So
we
was it
have
just-
Brad Pitt has been here once, and
Yeah.
that was enough.
That was enough.
selling
A river
point.
runs through it. Just got us
He
on the
just
map.
fished it so well. No, I think
You're probably not all the way wrong.
the fact is, as if the playing field were completely level, then folks would come here absolutely because it's a beautiful place to make a movie. But you can find a lot of what we have in Canada
Yeah.
in terms of our beautiful vistas, and it is so much cheaper to shoot there than it is to shoot here, unless we continue to be a player in that game, right? I mean,
Right.
Oklahoma, Texas, Puerto Rico, Minnesota, all these states are passing amazing legislation that makes it so attractive to film there. Montana needs to play ball.
And yeah, and back onto the Yellowstone thing. There's a reason why they put the show in Yellowstone and then filmed it in the Bitterroot.
Right? It started in Utah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the hotel rooms are $400 a night for crew and cast. And it was like, okay, we'll just film it over here and we'll buy a hotel.
Right? No, absolutely. And now you see all of that sort of matriculating to Texas because of the governmental
Incentives.
intervention there. Like
Yeah.
they just have become very friendly to Taylor Sheridan's universe specifically. And so they're going to get millions and millions of dollars as a result.
So we're behind the curve, but we still have the ability to benefit from this.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, there are still dollars available to productions that come in through 28-29, but increasingly we're seeing those dollars get sucked up. And so once 2029 money is spoken for, then the program is essentially sunset. We gotta kick that can down the road. We need to extend it to 2035. We need to raise our cap from 12 million to 30 million, and that's what we're aiming to do in this upcoming legislative session.
And then eventually Ant-Man 7 will be filmed in Livingston.
In Livingston.
It'll be a Western version of Ant-Man.
Folks would come here. People love to come here to make movies. It is, I call it destination filmmaking. It's so easy to sell it to actors and above the line types. Hey, come out here. You get a vacation in addition to doing this work. And people will jump at the chance.
I know I'm biased because I'm from here for a long time.
Third generation.
But
My kids are
there's
fourth generation.
something.
I'm from Iowa.
Yeah, he's
That's
from
how
Iowa.
That's how she introduces our family. I'm third generation from Bozeman. These are my boys. They're fourth generation from Bozeman. He's from Iowa.
He doesn't matter. You don't even need to meet him.
But I find that people come and when they hear Montana, it sounds beautiful and mysterious, even though they mostly think of just the western side of the state. Nobody ever thinks of the eastern side of the state.
Do we need to think about the eastern side
We
of the
don't.
state?
We could just cut our state in half and just have the one. But there is something very mysterious and just alluring about the word Montana.
Yeah. I think there's a certain image that you get conjured up in your head when you hear Montana that doesn't happen when you say Idaho or Wyoming or South Dakota. Like, folks just don't have that emblematic imagery in their head. So
no, I think
we're doing something right.
It's good. So
it's a good word.
That brings
Montana.
us to your film Somewhere in Montana. So could you
That's right.
tell us a little bit about what it's about, where it was filmed?
Sure. We shot this in 2022 in Polson, Montana, in the Flathead, and it is about a multi-generational rancher who is on the verge of losing his family ranch, and so he has to make a difficult decision, and he allows an LA film crew to come shoot a movie on his land, and he kind of butts heads with the film's crew and then director, and it does a really nice job of walking that fine line in the culture war right now and painting, I think, both sides as being rational.
Well, I think it's a story that a lot of ranchers are facing right now. A lot of family-owned ranches it's becoming harder and harder to maintain them, a lot more expensive, and
even more on a meta level, it's like this side versus that side, and how much do you let them encroach on your lives, let alone land and things like that.
It's kind of what speaks to people, I think, about the Yellowstone show, the multiple series. It's that idea of, is my land sacred? How do I maintain it? How do I keep people from invading? And this is like Yellowstone without the murders.
Nice.
Probably. Not as soapy as Yellowstone is.
Not as soapy. And I did do a rewatch last night, and I was trying to like pick out a part that was my favorite part, and I keep coming back to when Graham McTavish interrupts production, and the very first time they show them filming, and there's two women settlers on screen, and they share a kiss, and his quote is, "You really are making a gay cowboy movie." And it's such a great line.
I thought you were going to say "holy cow farts."
Yeah.
Which is what precedes
that. No, that's commonplace out here.
Okay.
But it was just such, for him to deliver that line is such a perfect line in that place. It's like, that's what they're doing as far as your world is concerned.
Right. And like, that's his big concern, but Graham is so good. In this movie, his performance is outstanding, and just being on set and watching him work was a joy.
No, we put him up there. Kyle and I love talking like character actors, people that don't necessarily star in something, but they have these roles, and we love the Winston Dukes and Tony Todds of the world that fill in these roles and then knock it out of the park for their 3 lines. Yeah, and Graham is one of those guys, generally speaking, where he's the heavy. He's the bad guy that comes in and has like 3 scary lines he says, and then he gets killed by the hero. And this one, it was like every line, I'm like, what's he going to say now? And you know what he's going to say because we live out here.
Yeah, and he has that, like, he's a British guy who was born in Scotland, but he really dials in this gruff, thick exterior Montana rancher. But he also has a great sense of humor, and his timing is impeccable. As a joke writer, I appreciate it.
The barbershop, when he's like, "I'm going fishing," and they're like, "Are you bringing beers?" I said, "I'm going fishing." It's such a like Montana line in and of itself. Like, you've heard that out here at convenience stores. You've heard that from family and friends.
Right.
And for him to deliver it and not hear the Scottish twang, not hear his kilt in the background is like, yep. It's perfect.
There was only one, because we would sometimes go over lines in the car as we were driving 30 minutes out to this ranch, and there's only one time where I caught him saying something that didn't sound accurate. It wasn't authentic, and it was when he was starting to say Montana. And I had to correct him, saying, "No,
that's an important word.
As a rancher, you're going to have to say Montana. Open that up."
It's that lawn A. You can't do the lawn A.
But, he is classically trained and a total pro.
So this one, how long were you intimately involved in this one? Was this from the beginning?
No, not from the very beginning, because the pandemic put it on ice for a bit. And so I came on after that when they were sort of spinning things back up and didn't have quite enough money in the budget. And so they reached out to me. I had been working with Brandon, the director, and Eden, the other producer, on another project that we were doing for free. And they said, hey, would you mind coming on and helping us to meet the budget shortfall? And so I just started making cold calls and going to meetings with friends and asking people to write me checks based on, I have this script, I have the lookbook, I have Graham McTavish and Michelle Hurd attached. Like, I have bankable names for this project that is very promising, and we want to shoot it in Polson. And I think we're going to save a lot of money by shooting it in a place where Brandon and Eden know everyone. Right. And that was definitely the case.
Yeah, you can call in a favor to get a shoot in a barbershop or a bar and not have to sit and
everything
get
was a
licenses
favor.
and permitting and all those things.
I think we ended up spending $0 on locations. I would need Eden to check me on that. Right. And
other than bar tabs,
IRS doesn't come kicking around. But no, that was certainly a place that we saved a lot of money. Was by shooting in Montana, where these people grew up.
Yeah, and they're happy to be a part of the process.
Yes.
And they're hoping that the product at the end of the day is really good so they can show off to everybody.
Yeah.
It is not very often that you can say your barbershop was in a real movie, and that's special. And people really do feel that's special.
Not
here.
jaded yet.
Yeah, they're not.
and we get, I mean, our theaters are all independent, so they're constantly asked, one, to screen independent movies, and two, it seems like we get quite a bit of filmmakers who want to make movies in a movie theater.
Yeah.
Like we have theaters that are always like, oh, we're going to be part of a production of a commercial or an independent movie. And it's like one of those special things about our listener side for being in film exhibition is like, yeah, you can be in the movies.
Right. It's the fun part of our industry, like that you get to be a part of.
And I would also add that the Montana crew, was so respectful of these locations and everyone who was doing us all these favors. I took a great photo of all the shoes lined up outside of the door of the ranch house we were shooting in, because the whole crew was working in their sock feet because they were asked not to mess up the floor. And so it's a very Montana thing. I've never heard of any other crew doing that before.
No, but it makes sense. You're out on the ranch, you're in muck. You take your boots off at the door.
It makes sense, but at the same time, it's
50 pairs
kind
of
of
shoes.
wild.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Well, that was filmed in Polson. Your next movie.
Oh, before we get there, I have to ask you about it. About this film. You took it to Rocky Mountain NATO, which is a regional convention for theater owners, and last year in Salt Lake City, and you screened it. What was your number one feedback from that screening?
So we did change a scene as a result of that, but we got really good feedback. Everybody liked the movie, and we had some great relationships that we developed as a result of screening it there with other independent theater owners.
Yeah.
But we were told by certain theaters, we would love to show this movie if it didn't have this nude scene in it. And it was, I don't know how essential it was to telling the story, but there was the farmer's daughter comes out of the pond, and you basically see everything that she's got. And we were told we would show this movie if that scene were not in it.
Right.
And so we did alter the scene.
And it's for the listeners, it's not in it anymore.
Yeah, no more graphic nudity. Now it's just sort of implied.
This is now the third time we've talked to Joe about
I know it's the third
cutting
time
the nudity out of
but
this movie.
It's the first time the listeners are hearing that the scene did get cut, because I actually had several of our theaters that we represent go to Rocky Mountain and ask me about this film. So that was my first introduction to the film, was from the theater owners being like, I want to play this movie whenever we can. And then we got hooked up with you, and now we're rolling out a real plan for a date for January 10th. And that's where we're trying to book it and stuff. And so I've let all those theaters know January 10th is the week, and that's when we're doing it. And then they asked me, they're like, oh, I really want to play it, but is there that scene in it? And I'm like, no, it's gone. It's gone. And they're
Has
like,
anyone asked you for more nudity? for us to add more. Okay.
Can we reshoot with Graham?
Yeah, I think you picked
Just
the
for a
wrong
day.
person.
Yeah.
He'd be game. Hey, man. Flip up that kilt.
Yeah. He's a professional. He'd be game.
That's right.
So just for them to know that scene is gone, but the feedback I got from all of the theater owners that got to see it was that it would perfectly play for their area.
Solid PG-13 Western movie.
Set in the Rocky Mountain region, and people
and,
love that.
And taking the soap opera element out of the new Westerns was important to a lot of people, because it was just like, okay, this is the story, beginning, middle, and end. It all makes sense. There's not all of a sudden.
And they made him authentic cowboy type, ranch hand type, which felt good. That was feedback that I got, that it felt like they knew people like that.
That's great. Yeah. That's all you want to hear. Yeah. As a filmmaker.
Uses an alarm clock in the beginning of the movie, and I'm like, there's no iPhones in this movie.
Honestly.
Which is like the smartest thing in the beginning. It's like just that and it's like not the
And listen, we shot this on a working ranch. And we have all these scenes of tack being hung up on the wall. But the two guys who worked the cattle on that ranch, they just rode four-wheelers. They had baseball caps. Yeah. It's a bygone era.
Yeah.
What you're thinking about when it comes to cowboys and working the cattle, it kind of doesn't happen anymore.
Like that, yeah. I mean, I have a cousin that has a ranch and stuff, and they definitely do the four-wheeler thing. But they have their horses, and they'll go out on rides, and they have llamas, and they hunt with alpacas. I mean, there's still elements of that, but anymore, it's just, why would you want to tackle up a horse and not just go turn a key and go?
Totally, yeah.
And you can have one horse instead of 12.
Oh my gosh, yes. And it doesn't cost you as much to put.
No, the whole thing. We'll get into the deep horse talk next episode.
Also, if I were a cow, I'd be way more afraid of a four-wheeler.
Right.
I would move much quicker when that thing
sound.
came around me.
Absolutely. All right, but you have another film.
I have another film.
Yeah.
Yeah, we shot, Eden and I produced another film in 2022. Not far away, but it was in Hamilton, down in the Bitterroot. And that was called Cuisine de l'Apocalypse. It's a zombie comedy, very different than Somewhere in Montana.
So different.
Yeah. But that was a blast, and that was one where there had been several iterations of the movie prior to making the feature. So you kind of had a built-in team and some actors who had been along from the beginning. And so it is just as quirky as it could be, but super fun. I'm very happy with how it turned out. Effects heavy.
Yes.
And without upsetting a real comedy writer, it was funnier than it had right to be. I mean, independent movies have if they're comedies, they have 3 jokes they put in there that you have to laugh at. The whole thing was quirky and funny, and it was funnier than it had a right to be.
There are some very funny people on camera, and when you do that, then a lot of times you get great stuff.
Yeah, not the writing at all.
The writing was good too.
The writing was great. Yeah. For
you need all of it.
A budget like that, the writing was great.
Yeah,
they pay people exorbitant amounts of money to write comedy films that aren't funny.
And this, from the jump, from the very premise of it, it's funny, right?
It's slapsticky just from the premise.
Post-apocalyptic, and you've got a guy who wants to be a TV chef in this new post-apocalypse era in New Missoula. It's very regional. And so I think once you kind of have that information, you're like, okay, this is going to be a zany ride, and it is.
Yeah. But a lot of times those go off the rails real early.
Yeah.
And your attention through it, which was good. I was like, oh, I'll try it. And then I'm like, okay, I'm 45 minutes in. It just goes.
Right.
And it's good. It's really good.
Off to the races.
We just have so many of these.
I think there's
comedies from big studios that
there's a small
lose you after the
cameo
first
from
joke.
Kevin Sorbo in it, to name a name that people would recognize.
They didn't recognize New Missoula.
They didn't recognize New Missoula. No,
You need Hercules. You need that name. Emilio Rivera, Natasha Leggero, some names in there that I think will help us.
We got to add Emilio to our list of character actors. He was just in the first episode of the new Landman with Billy Bob Thornton and was
I
excellent
haven't seen it. Emilio's in it?
He's in the first episode.
I need
It's
to watch
so
it then.
good.
Okay. He is such
great.
a sweetheart. But he's great on camera.
He's such a scary looking dude.
Yeah.
And he just knocks it out of the park. He has like 10 lines, 12 lines, and just kills it.
Good. That's what I want to hear. No, he could not be a nicer guy to hang out with, but man, that camera turns on and so does he. It's impressive.
All of a sudden you like sort out your clothes, call your wife. We've got our living will in order, right? Something bad's gonna happen.
Yeah, no, he's straight evil sometimes. If he needs to be.
So, well, when did you get into this project? Was it at the very beginning? I thought this one was a little bit later for you, so you fell into the script and then started the production, the fundraising, and
yeah,
production of it?
I came on at the tail end, and we had a single investor for this, so I didn't have to raise any money. There were conversations as we asked for more money,
Yeah.
Right.
But for the most part, I was there as additional producing help, just making sure everybody had what they needed to. It was a fairly small group effort. We shot this in the Ferroplex Theater
I was gonna say.
in Hamilton.
Yeah, I used to book for that theater
Before it
before the
closed.
pandemic,
Yeah.
and then after the pandemic, it didn't reopen, but it turned into a studio.
Yeah.
So that's
And
really exciting.
We needed it so badly because
Yeah.
that's when the air quality was so bad in 2022, and so we could not shoot outside. They had built
Right.
this entire back lot that we just couldn't use for a large portion of the shooting schedule. So we were inside, cowering, building sets that appeared to be outdoors, but they were in fact on sound stages.
Inside an old movie theater.
One of
Inside
those-
an old movie theater.
One of those.
An Egyptian themed old movie theater.
Yeah, I was gonna say like one of those super special, really quirky places
Yeah.
that exist only out here in the West. Like
Right.
once you get past farmland, all of a sudden there's mystery oddities on the side of the road and things like that, and then there's an Egyptian themed movie theater.
Yeah.
In the Mountain West.
in the absolute middle of nowhere. I mean, it's 50 miles from anything that resembles like a city as people would think of it.
I was just perplexed when I first drove up and parked. I was like, what is this?
I'm sure you
thing?
read it a bunch of times. You're like Ferroplex or saw something,
Sure,
and you're like,
but you
okay,
think that's
cool.
just a word.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just a
I didn't think there was going to be
Ferroplex,
a
they spelled something wrong.
sarcophagus inside.
water features.
Like,
Was that all still there when you guys did it?
a lot of it was in the hallways. I think there's at least one shot of a sarcophagus in the movie.
How could you
didn't-
not, though?
I didn't even look for it because I was like, I assumed he ripped all that out of there as part
Yeah.
of covered it up just because it was so odd.
Yeah,
You couldn't sell it. You couldn't use it for anything else
Right.
other than film production.
No. And for a short time there, he even had a drive-in movie theater on the side of the building through the pandemic, trying to get people to come.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's where the back
Salvage
lot.
it.
That's where we built
On-
the entire New Missoula city.
Was in the back parking
Yeah.
lot where that's crazy.
Joe used the word already and give him pass because we didn't tell him about this beforehand. You now owe us $3 for using the end of times word, which is not allowed.
I thought we were suspend that.
No, absolutely
for
not.
this interview.
No,
How
Joe gets a
could we
pass.
talk to a professional without
Joe
saying
gets a
the
pass
word?
because we didn't go through this.
Did I say impasse first?
You said the bad P word at the end of times word for our industry, but now we're back and it's been 4 full years.
Yeah. But we
And-
still got to
Oh,
talk
so we
about it
don't-
as an era.
I got you.
No, he can do it all he wants.
Okay, it's fine. It buys drinks at the end of this. So
I won't use it again.
That's $3 from you. You used it 3 times in 2 sentences.
That's your co-cordon guarantee. All right. That's a one-timer.
Well, thank you, Joe, for coming in and telling us about your movies.
yeah. When can so we know we're booking somewhere in Montana January 10th, the week of January 10th. That's when we're scheduling it. Everybody should have trailers. up.
110-25.
Yeah. For Cuisine, we're thinking that's going to be more of an event title, and anytime on that one.
I think anytime after February 7th, what we're
Yeah.
saying is in select theaters starting February 7th. So
Okay.
Yeah, looking for special dates. This would be a great, late show, midnight show of this movie where you can promote and get people out who
Definitely
are interested
events.
in zombies, interested in prepping,
Oh my gosh.
and get them actually into the theaters.
And we're happy to do some giveaways, spatulas,
Right.
cooking themed, and zombie makeup tutorials, that kind of thing. If you want to include that into a screening, we're happy to discuss
Oh
it.
yes, absolutely. We're approaching Cuisine as more of an event pick, where you would have giveaways and you would pick a special date and have little events centered around the showcasing of this film. Somewhere in Montana is going to be more of a traditional screening with a week run.
Listening to us and not really used to this idea of film distributors working with theaters.
Yeah.
Yes, he is doing this. He's not asking for all of your film rental and all of your seats and requiring certain things. Joe's excited to be at the party.
Absolutely. No, we love showing this movie to people. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
No,
And
we're
it's coming
pumped.
at a great time where we'll need product because it's looking slim on the majors front.
If you're going 110, you're going head to head with the
Paramount film.
Robbie Williams,
Better Man.
Better Man, where it's his biopic, but instead of being played by an actor or young Robbie Williams, it's played by a CGI ape.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're going to be
very similar
competing
movies.
for audiences with that.
and you've got Den of Thieves from Pantera
Den of
from
Thieves.
Lionsgate.
Yeah, I mean, how could you compete against a sequel to a Gerard Butler movie that made $18 million total for the run? And they somehow made a sequel out of it.
I bet Gerard Butler and Graham know each other socially.
Probably.
Is that a crazy
they seem
thing
like,
to say?
No, they seem like the same kind of guy. Like they run in the circles. Like
Wouldn't they?
you've been in an action film.
If
I've been in an
Gerard
action
Butler
film.
was like 10% uglier, he would be Graham McTavish for his career. He would be the heavy that just got beat up and stabbed 4 minutes in. I bet Gerard Butler has stabbed Graham McTavish.
That's a great trivia question. Yeah. I'll
How many Scottish men have you killed,
check.
Gerard Butler? He probably has a list in his wallet, crossing people off.
He's a busy guy. He's a very bloody knife. You and I know it.
Just Scottish guys that he keeps a list of. Anybody that's up and coming, he's going on the list.
Yeah, at the very least, it's happened in a Shakespearean play that they were in together. You know that these guys all work.
Well, thanks for coming in, Joe. Do you have anything you can share for parts of the film? I know we've got it on our website, but do you have any social links or anything for the films?
Sure. Yeah, I can absolutely share those with
Good.
you.
We'll get those listed on the
We
podcast.
just released our theatrical trailer and poster to the public. So
To the public.
Yeah.
Public. Oh, the
public on the
Excuse
internet.
me. The public. Very cool.
We've been showcasing the trailer on our site, so on everybody's booking page, so they can go check it out, download it, and then start trailering it on their screens this week.
Yeah, promoting it on their social media channels to drum up interest after the family-friendly movies wave has crested and passed from Thanksgiving through this Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, we look forward to taking all that momentum back. Okay.
It's something for adults.
For non-animated movies.
Yeah.
But Somewhere in Montana 2 will be animated. That one's just for children.
Okay.
Right. It'll have talking cows. We all know it. Maybe a gopher too.
The Rock has already signed on.
To get, I knew he was from the trailer. I knew he was gonna punch the director in the movie, but he punches the shit out of him in this. Like, it looks really good, but it's like,
Okay.
I wanted to punch that guy. It was like when is he? I'm watching the movie and I'm like, from the trailer, I'm like, when is he gonna punch him? Is it now? Is it now? Like, can we do this already? Then once he did it, I'm like, is there a second one coming? Is he gonna do it again?
And that was the actor, not the. I know we don't need to get into this. No spoilers.
No spoilers.
Come on, Ken.
Yeah. Just the highlights.
It's in the trailer. He punches the shit out of him.
He does.
All right. On that note, bye everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Off the Break Podcast. Find us on all podcast platforms and be sure to like and follow our Facebook and Instagram pages at Off the Break Podcast.